Hello, and welcome to this trap game edition of the Purple Journal podcast. It was going to be
Trap game edition part 2.
There you
Don't
go.
take the bait. Don't take the bait.
It was going to be a few, or I don't know what I can't say the word I'm thinking of. Few?
Yeah,
that doesn't sound right.
Relief edition?
Yeah, I don't know. I should probably go to the doctor. But I figured, why not? I am Joe Johnson, owner of purplePTSD.com, VikingsTerritory.com. I also co-host the Morning Joe's podcast with Mr. Joe Oberly, who also happens to be on this show.
Vikings fans!
Ooh, maybe you should start.
Oh, wait, that's
There's so much more.
Wrong shit.
Oomph. Joe writes for Purple PTSD, Vikings Territory, the Sports Post, most importantly, and then he obviously is on the show that he should be hosting by that edition. And Luke Brown's here. He made it. I know there's no hurricanes on the West Coast, but it was a photo finish. That's Luke's hurricane. Every
daily
day.
hurricane, which is just car exhaust, like swirling around my nostrils.
You know why there's hurricanes on the East Coast, don't you?
Yeah,
because we pollute.
West Coast sucks. Sorry.
Oh. Ooh.
Oh wow. So
I've never.
It's like our fault because of the pollution, which might be true.
Yeah. Well, I think that's everyone's fault at this point, but I'm sure that's like a joke that has been around forever, but I've never heard it, and I like it.
I've never heard that either.
I've always said that about it. They've always said it about, you know, why the wind blows in Iowa, because Minnesota sucks. That's
I'm
I've
using
heard that one.
I'm going to use that to death. Luke Brown writes for Purple PTSD, Vikings Territory. He also co-hosts the Pocket Protectors podcast on the Climbing the Pocket Network, which I very much enjoy. How are you guys feeling? It was getting a little scary. You know, there were some dire predictions, namely from this guy, last time we were on the show. So you can always say, why is it windy working at Purple PTSD? Because Joe sucks. But
there's two Joes.
Which one? But they won.
Well, there was somebody that picked a win, I think.
Yeah. You know, did Luke pick a loss as well?
Oh yeah, comfortably.
Okay, so that's what I thought.
We were gonna get our butts kicked.
Wow. I think I'll kick it to you with your gut reaction of the game, the win.
Yeah, I mean, I went into it from last week. I talked a lot about like the things that I thought they needed to fix, and I don't think they fixed them outright. Like they still had a lot of trouble running up the middle. They had a few runs that were successful in kind of clutch moments, but still not there. And they cut down a lot on the miscommunications, but there was still one pretty high profile one that thankfully Wendell Smallwood dropped it. Otherwise, he was 1-on-1 with Harrison Smith for a touchdown, which heavily favors the offensive player. But you know, far fewer of those, right? They weren't happening like every quarter. So that helped a lot, and you know, only the one weird Rock Thomas turnover. So having that helped a lot, and then you know we kind of got some of the luck to bounce our way again. You know, the onside kick bounced our way, the strip sack bounced right into Linval Joseph's lap.
Ajayi, his leg explodes and the ball comes out.
Yeah, the play he got injured on was actually Anthony Barr blowing him up in pass protection.
Okay. I thought he got hurt during the run because it reminded me of the Delvin Cook thing.
No, he just dropped it. Yeah. He just messed up. But he did finish the game, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Knee brace. Someone who's torn their ACL, once it's torn, there's basically no more pain. You just have you can't do much because you can't cut. Your bones wiggle in your leg after that.
And Diggs and Thielen made it their football field. They really were. They just completely took over, and Kirk Cousins was excellent.
I'm glad that you're owning that so well that you predicted they were going to get their ass kicked. That's nice to hear. Way to go!
I'm wrong all the time. This isn't new for me.
Didn't we know this? I think we all are. I mean, it's
what? I predicted
This is a well-deserved victory lap.
23, and the final was 23-21.
I did text
Yeah.
Joe at one point and said, like, what are you doing? Like, how did you predict this so well?
It was going to be a Dan Bailey was going to be the difference in the end.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
Yeah, not all the time.
Just sometimes, and then sometimes Joe's scarily right. Like, that was so close that, like, you should start working for Nate Silver at some point.
Yeah, right.
What'd you think of the game, though?
Me,
Just in general.
I was. I have to say, I'm supposed to be this objective, dispassionate reporter, that's chronicling the game for all the readers and what have you out there. And when he kicked that 52-yarder, I jumped up and went, yes. I just yelled.
You're lucky it wasn't a home game.
I was the only one in the house where I was watching it, and I just, I was pacing at that point because I thought that was, that was huge to go up by 9 points at that point and make it a 2-score game. And it was a really fun game to watch because the Vikings defense was playing well and because Kirk Cousins, he blew my socks off. He was taking the hits and throwing those passes on a rope and or dropping dimes, whatever cliche you want, and it was just a joy to watch. I mean, to see him after 38-7 last year to see them come out and just play with intensity and play like they have in the past and just said they really did. Even though the Eagles came back in the second half, the Vikings didn't let up. They were out there just gutting it out and going for it, and it was fun football to watch if you're a Vikings fan. And I love seeing, as much as I think Carson Wentz is a great guy and great player, I love to see him scrambling for his life a little bit. And it was fun, great fun to watch.
Yeah, it definitely was. I felt like the recipe for failure was there with those 2 missed field goals to start the game. That freaked me out. I looked at Tyler Haig, who watched the game the first half with me because he does a post-game show, and I'm like, we're going to lose by a field goal or maybe 2, 5 points. That was good. I expected, I posted some immediate positivity after the game and said it was a definite step in the right direction. Like, it wasn't a super dominating performance or anything. Like, it didn't remind me of last team's defense, but still, they held the Eagles to, 21 points at home.
At home, and they're the defending Super Bowl champions. So I know they're not the same team as they were last year, but I don't care. You go into that arena, and it was, it's going to be charged just because of the animus that was created between these two teams last January. You knew, it was going to be that kind of atmosphere, and they went in there and they just they from the word go they started saying, we are not going to let up till we're done. So
and that was a quick question that I had for both of you guys. I have a second different question that will lead into one of the article that Luke wrote this week. But how good do you think? Well, they're both the same thing, because I thought that I'd get a lot of shit from people saying, "Oh, well, so much for Zimmer being on the hot seat now. You're all happy and excited." I totally expected that, but I actually more feel like maybe my Zimmer piece indoctrinated me into this like hyper negative group of Vikings fans who then got mad at me for being positive about the game.
You got all the angry fans
because they're like, "What are you talking about? Like, I thought you understood us." It was like, this was not a good game. What game were you? The one that sticks out was we didn't watch the same game. This defense is still terrible. They got lucky. And it sounds like something maybe I would have said 10 years ago, but it's like, but if it keeps happening with these turnovers, you can't just say it's luck. I mean, at least they're coming up with them. That's something the defense historically hasn't done. But first question being, do you think the Eagles are just like having a really wicked case of a Super Bowl hangover, and they'll get better as Carson Wentz gets better, or with especially with the injury at the running back position, do you think that maybe this season is just not going to work out for them? Like, how good are they, I guess is the general question.
I would say yes and let Luke diagnose it. I would say yes to that question.
Yeah, they are clearly not this like juggernaut. I mean, they were unbeatable in the playoffs the way that they were just like out innovating everyone, but I mean, they put up 38 on us and then put up 41 on Bill Belichick, who's one of the greatest defensive minds of all time. Like, this is not that team. But they were really sloppy pre-snap. I think they had like 8 pre-snap penalties or something. They had all kinds of confusing problems. They had, miscommunications, and that limited their ability to play. I think there was like an element of luck in this game. We kind of were lucky to benefit from that sketchy roughing call and a couple of the bounces I talked about earlier.
Total gift.
But they're not like a bad team. Like, they're still very clearly a playoff team. And I think, when two good teams meet, they're going to kind of make each other look worse. And I think this has been kind of a thing in the NFC East for like a decade. That, they're a bunch of like, they were like always a bunch of pretty good teams that would like beat each other up so that they're all 9-7. But like, yeah, I don't think the Eagles are like this trash unit or anything like that. I think they had a lot of problems that need to be cleaned up before they can really like expect to make a run. But we still had to contend with like Carson Wentz running around and making plays, and we still had to contend with a very good offensive line. So like, credit to Stephen Weatherly for like getting a strip sack on, was it Lane Johnson on the right, or was that Jason Peters? I forget.
I think it was Johnson.
And credit for, to Danielle Hunter for beating the crap out of Big V, Polyvitai? What? I don't know how to say his name, but for beating the crap out of that guy who pretty much stonewalled Everson Griffin in the NFC Championship. Those kinds of things like are enough to turn the tide of a game from a blowout in one direction to a close win in the other.
Joe, I think a lot in the NFL depends on when you play a team. And the Vikings they got the Eagles at the right time when they're still readjusting back to Wentz. He's good. He's healthy. He can run and move and throw not like, I think I was talking about this the other day. When you suffer an injury like that, it's going to take a while to get your confidence back that you can do everything you could before. I think we're seeing it with Dalvin Cook a little bit. So we're getting them at the right time. They're still got a little bit of a hangover. They're going to be in the playoffs at the end of the year. They're going to be a team to be reckoned with when they start figuring out who their new team is, what's up and what's going on. Get some of their players back that they've already had players injured, and when they trade for Le'Veon Bell, they'll really be tough to handle. But so I think it was good to get them now, and the Vikings, have weathered to a certain degree this very early tough schedule, and we'll see how they do the rest.
It reminds me of the Saints game last year because you guys said similar things for different reasons. I think they had a young defense and they needed to kind of learn to play together a little bit more, but that we kind of got them the right week with the opening season game. I did want to touch on too before we get into Luke's article what your guys' thoughts were on the Bennett penalty.
Total gift.
Yep.
I thought it was so weak watching Cousins gingerly fold to the ground. Is that the right one you're talking about when he got he hit him low and he just kind of I guess I'll sit down now, and he kind of basically sat down on the guys he was taking. It wasn't egregious. It wasn't he was kind of being hit into him. He did not have intent to injure, even though by the letter of the rule he was did the wrong thing. But it turned what would have been a fourth down and either
was it a fourth down?
No, it was a third and long.
Yeah.
When that happened? I thought it was second and long.
It was 2nd and 10, I think, and it would have set up a 3rd and long.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe I'm wrong there. But anyway,
I think so.
It would have made it a tough play the next time. Instead, they move him towards the goal, and they end up getting a touchdown. It was a gift. And like I said, Joe, on Tuesday, what goes around comes around. I thought they got a little bit of a gift with the penalty on Zendejo in the end zone. But, granted, that's a different time of game. I think this was really a crucial play that not unlike the one that Matthews got for the Packers against the Vikings. So,
the crowd liked it.
Yeah, the rule is that you can't dive at the quarterback's knees because obviously that's dangerous and that causes injuries a la Brett Favre in the NFC Championship. But
and force.
Yeah, and there's a lot of controversial penalties from this rule because they don't call whether or not you hit their knees. They call whether or not you dove at them, regardless of how successful you were. There was another one, I think, in the Cardinals-Niners game.
So if you miss, it's still a penalty?
He dove at the knees, but the quarterback evaded it, but he still dove at the knees, and he got the penalty for that. People were like,
wow.
oh, he barely touched him, and it's like, that's not what it's about.
Okay.
In this case, though, he hit him in the waist, in the rear.
And then fell.
He didn't dive at the knees. He was way too high to call that penalty. So I think that's really, I think it was Walt Coleman just not seeing something, like not seeing what he thought he saw, and then calling a flag on that, and you can't go back on it and review it, and then he goes and doubles down. But I feel like if you really watch where Michael Bennett made contact, that was a legal hit. And
I wanted to bring that up too because we've been kind of ribbing Luke a little bit for going to all these awesome games and stuff this year so far, and you basically said, yeah, I'm cool on going to that game, and I think that was the play that would have determined whether or not you would have made it out alive, because, man, I've never heard that on TV before that loud. I've heard it in hockey games and stuff, but the entire stadium, man, Philly does not play.
I might have been booing, too. That was a pretty bad call.
I don't
turn your jersey inside out.
The least bit, I could care less. As a Vikings fan, many years I've been on the other side of those. Everybody gets them. They happen. I don't care.
I mean,
it was a gift. We'll take it. The Vikings, I still think were the better team, and granted that helped them become the winner. I don't care. I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm not going to say, oh my God, the Eagles would have won, save for this penalty. It's possible, but you don't know. So they don't even say it, so I'm not even going to listen.
And statistically, it has to, and this is a really shitty statistic to have in a professional league, but. And I don't know if anyone's ever done this. Luke, you would know. But those calls fall evenly regardless of opponent. So at some point they're going to benefit from a call like that, I'm sure. Maybe it won't be in such a jarring way with a touchdown to play later. But the idea that maybe the refs are for a home team or for the Rams or whatever, all these different ideas people get in their heads, Packers or the Vikings from the Wisconsin people say the same thing. They're evenly distributed. Bad calls, I guess.
If you wait for long enough, eventually all of these, any trend you see of, they never called this on whoever, will even out.
Unless your guy's a complete hack, maybe like Sue and is just actually getting legitimate penalties.
Or Clay Matthews or Dejo getting reputation penalties, which is honestly I'm not that mad about.
Zimmer didn't like that one. He was he got asked about it on Monday at the press conference, and he was hemming and hawing and biting his tongue and trying not to get fined by saying anything, but he thought it was a little light. And I thought it was a little light. I thought it was a penalty. I mean, it's helmet to helmet to a certain degree.
The Sendejo one.
Yeah, it was, but he didn't like it. He didn't like it, and
that's a week. Didn't the ref tell Sendejo the week before that he did everything perfectly, but he'll flag him every time, which I think semantically is not what you want to say as a referee. And so maybe that's part of it too. I don't know. I mean,
he's got a reputation. There's no two ways about it. You know dang well that. I mean, they're human beings. They probably sit there and look at their sheet before a game and say, okay, who are the headhunters out here? Okay, we'll keep an eye on them because I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying they have that, but I think you if you do your. Zimmer said this on Monday. He said the refs are looking at film too, and that's all you need to know. And Zendejo's been flagged and fined, and so they know what he's like. I mean, look at the hit that Harrison Smith put on Alshon Jeffrey in the middle of the field. When he did that, it was wonderful. It was beautiful, and I thought he's going to get a flag because. You just, you could have called that defenseless receiver if you would have won it.
That was such a beautifully legal hit. He did such a good job. And yeah, you're totally right. I'm not disagreeing with you, but that hit might have decided the game.
Absolutely, it was huge.
That was 3rd and 20, right?
Yeah, and he would have come down on the other side of the sticks.
It was a great, but I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, here we go. And, he was in the middle of his body. He hit him at the right time. But I think since these are judgment calls, ultimately, because it happened so fast, you could have thrown a flag there.
Yeah, and maybe, I'm putting this out there, maybe wearing a Make Football Violent Again hat during camp and posting pictures of helmets with 2 face masks on them doesn't help that reputation.
No sympathy.
That is a great point, right there.
And the rest of the team has been excellent at head-up tackling, just like I predicted they did when I was at camp.
I've been
really, really good at keeping their head up, tackling with the face mask, seeing what they hit, and laying out good impacts, but legally, except for Sendejo.
I've been waiting to ask you guys about this because there's been stuff he's done that really pisses me off, but then he does something else that kind of negates it. But at some point you have to think, like, dude, give it up, man. Like, you're not. I don't know what his MO is.
He may not get a chance this week because he's on the injured list. He didn't practice today with
groin, I think.
What is wrong with him? A groin? I thought I saw.
Groin. Yeah, it was undisclosed for a while, and then it came out as a groin.
Yeah.
And you got 2 other safeties that are chomping at the bit after last week to get some more time. So you may see him resting this week.
And maybe he might not come back. Everyone that I see is like, where's Iloka? And Curse is playing well, so yeah. One of the things that the negative crowd, that was the segue, has been harping on is the offensive line. I've harped on the offensive line. We all have for a long time. And I feel like there's 2 parts to this. The first part is Luke's piece, which talks about how DiFilippo's kind of schemed around a disaster. And the other part comes from, we'll get into a little bit more afterwards, which is how great Cousins is playing, like hanging tough and getting hit on all these throws and how sustainable that is for his health and just in general. But Luke, maybe I don't know if
So I wrote about John DiFilippo, and he was dealing with a problem, right? Even if you have a good offensive line, you're not going to be able to hold up against the Eagles like Fletcher Cox and Michael Bennett and all these guys, right?
Real quickly, I haven't brought this up at all on our media. It just flashed into my mind. What is up with Michael Bennett's shoulder pads?
I have no idea. Oh, he wears quarterback pads because they're lighter and more flexible. He takes more punishment for it, but he's a tough guy.
I figured like maybe he just wants that the rotation so his arms aren't getting pinned down or something, but it's like they look like a 12-year-old's pads.
Yeah, it's like a range of motion. They're literally the pads you put on quarterbacks.
Like Brett Favre's pads that were all tattered. That drove me crazy. Anyway, sorry.
But yeah, so DiFilippo's dealing with this issue of like, there's no way my guys are going to be able to protect, right? It'd be stupid to sit there and say, all right, the offensive line has to play well. They're not going to.
He is a realist.
Yeah, so you have to kind of design a bunch of ways to get the ball out quicker, right? And that's kind of get the ball out quicker. But what does that mean? How do you do that and still have an offense? So that's what I wrote about in a whole bunch of different examples of things like using pre-snap motion to spring Diggs open. There were plays where Diggs would motion across the field and get separation. Once they realized that it was man coverage, he would dart the other way, and then suddenly he'd have 2 steps on the guy before the ball is even snapped. And you can throw a swing pass to him, and it was like a 6-yard gain on first down. Perfect. Offensive line got destroyed on that play, and it didn't matter.
And Luke, you pointed out in the piece that it's illegal to get a running head start going forward, but it says, like you said, the rules say nothing about going sideways. And so he's getting a full head of steam, and all he has to do is take a left turn and go up. It's great. It
reminds me of arena football where they let those guys line up 10 yards back and get a full head of steam going. Yeah.
And Diggs got a touchdown off this in Green Bay. So this is not some like new wrinkle or anything. But things like that, things like they did this. Shermer did a lot of this for Case Keenum for a different reason, which was half-field reads. It was because Keenum is, a slow field reader, so giving him a half-field read is like the only way you can actually have a functional offense. But essentially, if you can determine pre-snap whether it's man or zone, which isn't that hard, you have a man beater on one side of the field and a zone beater on the other side of the field. And once you realize whether it's man or zone, like you can completely ignore one side of the field, and then you're only really reading like 2 receivers. So you can make that read a lot quicker, and then that makes it so the offensive line has to protect for less. In the article, there's a whole bunch of other like examples of that kind of thing. The ways that they were able to get out the ball quicker, and just some of the like free yards, I guess is what I'd call it, that DiFilippo was able to manufacture, where all Cousins had to do was kind of backpedal and flip it out to a wide open guy, just because the play design was so good. And that's really awesome. And kudos to Cousins for executing that. I don't think this was his hardest assignment of the year. I think, when we look back on this game all year, it'll probably he'll probably look back on this one and think it was like maybe the 6th or 7th hardest game he had. But it's still, you still have to execute those plays. So, and he was under pressure a lot executing those plays. So it was a really nice kind of effort by the whole team and everybody, including Diggs and Thielen, who were just making the Eagles' corners look silly.
Some of this stuff they'll obviously see again, like you pointed out. Diggs did it up in Green Bay, and so some of these things to hide your porous offensive line, they're going to do again, especially with Reed being hurt now, and he might not even play this week. Who knows? And you got to have O'Neal in there, moving Rashad to the left side of the line. So they're going to run into more, good defensive lines and defenses, and they're going to have to do some more of this stuff.
And that kind of thing can help the run game too, because if like with Diggs being in motion pre-snap, if he's flying across the formation, and then the defense is trying to like shift to account for that, and then you snap the ball mid-shift, suddenly all their leverage is gone because they're they're like mid-step doing something else. And it makes the offensive line's job a little bit easier in a world where they've been really struggling.
They can't be the first team to do this, though, can they?
No, but I think there's something to be said for when you've been successful at it, then you can like set up those looks in future games. Versus when, if it didn't work, if the play got blown up, now you can't do that. Now the run game is that.
And then, like you said,
snowballs.
And then you can like pretend to do it and then do something else and catch the defense. And
every team tries to do this, varying degrees of success.
I was interested because a lot of people, the other caveat to some of those angry tweets I got were the run game's still non-existent. I didn't think that was true. Like, clearly they weren't like some good or even mediocre unit, but they did pick up some yards late in the game, something that I was worried about in our pregame was, if they have the lead, can they run the clock out? Are you saying, Luke, that's why maybe they were better in the run game? Would you even say they were better? I mean, I don't want to say that you did. I mean, they did some stuff. The bar's pretty low.
I don't think the run game traditionally was very good. The run game to Diggs specifically was awesome. Those jet sweeps worked. So if you want to lump that in, then yes, it was fine. But Murray got 3.8 yards per attempt. That's not good enough.
Yeah.
His runs were helpful late in the game when they started, going into we've got a lead shell. Murray, cracked off a couple runs that kept the drive going and ate some clock. So it was good in that regard. But other than that, it was late in the game. It was once again, Cousins had to sling it a lot. And what did I hear today? He's the first guy who's ever had 4 consecutive games completing 30 passes.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing. But so they've got to get better than they were. They did some things, but you got to give some of that to. I don't consider handing it off to Diggs part of the running game myself, but even though it is a run technically, I mean I want to see some linemen moving some people up front and opening some holes and having these guys, get to the second level and then I'll start saying, okay, the running game's back. I was kind of down on it myself.
There was one play in the last drive, the last offensive drive as we were trying to kill clock, and it was 3rd and 2, and they came out in this super heavy run formation. And everything they did showed run. There's a great, if you go to Brian Baldinger's Twitter.
3rd and 1.
Thing, it was 3rd and 1, was it?
Yeah, Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah, the Kyle Rudolph where he tiptoed down the sideline.
Oh, yeah.
But the way they disguised him, they came out unbalanced. They had Brian O'Neal line up in the tight end position, and they had Kyle Rudolph line up at right tackle and did weird eligibility shenanigans. And had C.J. Ham and everybody set up like it's a run. It all looked like it was a run. This unbalanced thing is totally going to be a run. And then they play action. Kyle Rudolph leaks out of the formation and is wide open. He runs down the field for 15 yards on 3rd and 1.
And he could have gone a lot further if he didn't step out of bounds.
If ever there was a time for the defense to be oh, their run game isn't working, this might be a pass. It would have been then, and they still fell for it.
I think it's safe to say that all of us were thinking, man, Adrian Peterson could really help this team. Yuck. Going back to Cousins, though.
almost didn't get out of there. He looked like he tripped up over a couple legs trying to get through the line there, and the guy rushing in almost got to Cousins, but he played it cool and got the pass to him. That was a huge play at the end of the game.
Speaking of Cousins, that record that he has, his stats are insane. 11 touchdowns, 1 or 2 interceptions. I think like 1,600 yards after 5 games. Clearly, that's amazing, but it's not necessarily like sustainable, especially with all the punishment he's been taking. I guess the question I'll kick at you, Joe, first is just sustainability. Like, do you think that his body will hold up? I know we talked about this on Morning Joe's too, or like at some point. I mean, I can't imagine this is going to be the way this is going to go the entire season.
Well,
I hope not anyway.
I said, coming in, the knock on Cousins was his happy feet under pressure and his troubles there, and it was a concern, definitely a concern. We've all talked about it on this show, and he's been, showing the opposite. I mean, he has hung in there with guys in his face, with guys that he knows are coming to drill him, and he's even got a name for it. Chuck and Duck is what he's been doing. But the way he's been throwing the ball, it is on a line, on a dime. He's just, in these small windows when knows he's going to get drilled, and that's something I was surprised to see. And the point I had made, and it occurred to me the other day, was that part of this has got to be for him is the realization that the rules have changed, and they're not going to light me. They're not going to light me up. I'm going to get hit, and I mean he's been hit many times. He's had bad offensive lines in Washington for years. So even if he gets rid of it quick, he still has gotten hit. So he can take a hit, but maybe he's a little more courageous. I'm going to stick in there a little bit longer and make this play, because I know he has such confidence in his receivers and where they're going to be with those 2 excellent route runners, that maybe that's allowing him to mitigate this knock that's been on him.
Or maybe he feels like an extension of that. Maybe if he throws a bad ball, he'll get a penalty anyway.
That's a point right there. Yeah.
It's kind of like not necessarily a free play, but it's like, why not go for it?
There's actually been some studies on this, and I don't think that the actual amount you get hit, as counterintuitive as this sounds, the amount you get hit versus your chance of being injured is like less related than you'd think. And I think it's because most of these I think it's because most of the quarterback injuries that like actually keep you out for a long time are non-contact. You don't really see nowadays, because of all these rules protecting the quarterback, you don't really see these like, oh, they got lit up and then they were out for 4 weeks kind of things. You see people get bumped and bruised, and you see them get rattled in the pocket, and hitting the quarterback definitely has an impact. But in terms of like getting injured, that doesn't happen a lot because they've done so much work to eliminate it.
That's fine and good, and that's great. I mean, the fact that they have numbers that show that, it makes a lot of sense. I would agree with that. However, these are human beings, and when they see, Linval Joseph bearing down on them, they're not thinking, I might not get hit, I don't know. I mean,
it has a huge impact on the actual results of plays. I'm talking about like whether or not they get up from them. They usually get up.
And I'm sure, like, if you took non-contact injuries away, the quarterbacks that get hit more probably get injured more because there's more opportunities for it. But,
yeah,
there's hamstrings and torn ACLs and all sorts of stuff with mobile quarterbacks. You don't see a lot of, like, those Tom Brady back in the day when Castle came in the next year, like, below the knee ACL tear type stuff.
I just think the rules have really benefited quarterbacks, and we've certainly seen that with the number of the completions and passing are just way up this year, historic proportions apparently. So, they know these rules have changed, and I don't know, maybe it would if someone just paid me $84 million, I think I'd hang in there for another beat and make sure I delivered the ball. I don't know.
Yeah, and some of those rules too weren't. I don't think. Maybe they were guised as player protection, but I always go back to the Irsay stuff when the Colts couldn't beat the Patriots and making it harder for D-backs to do most anything. That's been kind of doubled down on. I think that's where a lot of the yards come from too. But
that was the points were down last year, and they always the word is that the NFL is didn't like that because scoring
means ratings.
It means ratings and money. So their changes that I think have helped.
In that way, I don't know. That's a good question. I wonder, Joe, you followed the league for a really long time. So you have a good sense on this. Luke obviously does too. But how do you feel about the league as a whole moving forward? Do you feel any certain way about maybe protecting a quarterback more than another player, or taking some of that violence out of the game, turning it into, people always say flag football? Are you worried about that, or do you feel any sort of way about it?
Well, I think they've went a little too far. I mean, I've never felt like I've needed to defend Clay Matthews in my life, but I've certainly feel like some of the hits, they just look like legal football hits, and they're throwing flags. And I think I think they will readjust after this season. I think the flags have slowed down a little bit in this regard since they were early, certainly in the preseason and maybe in the early going here. But I don't want it to go that way. I want them to be able to tackle. I don't want them to be able to injure, but but I want them to play the game of football. And I have some concerns. I'm not losing sleep at night, but it's a thing.
Yeah, I don't have a very strong opinion on it. It's if less of these guys are going to be 55 and unable to walk, then I suppose that's fine.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's hard to. I feel gross sometimes, even watching some things that happen and rooting for things that I used to root for, and things like, okay, well that guy, especially with Everson Griffin's situation, or even what's his face, Hernandez having the brain of a 120-year-old. That's not a sport that I guess I want to cover either, So I guess we're in the midst of them figuring it out, and I think people need to relax a little bit. But the lucky thing is and I didn't mean you, Joe. I mean, I think you have a pretty measured take on it. I agree with you.
Yeah, but I might be suffering from the onset.
CTE. Yeah, we've been talking about that off air a lot. We're not even on air right now. We're just making you feel good. Speaking of feeling good, that Linval Joseph touchdown was one of the greatest moments of my life, sadly enough. What a great freak! And then he busts out the sunglasses as he's getting oxygen to save his life.
Iconic.
Seriously, I want a T-shirt with him sitting there with the oxygen mask on. That would actually be a good idea for our merch store.
Glad he didn't light up a heater I saw Len Dawson, a picture of him the other day at halftime in the locker room.
Just going for it.
In the early games, Jets safety Marcus May picked off Case Keenum at the end of the game and ran it all the way back almost for a touchdown.
Yeah, tackled on the 1 yard line.
Yeah, and on that play, according to the next-gen stats, they have the speed tracking. He topped out at the same speed that Linval Joseph topped out on his touchdown.
No
that
way.
Is a moving, fast, 300-pound man.
I said it on Morning Joe's, and I'll say it again. There's that scene in the third Austin Powers movie where Fat Bastard's on a wire and he's on his tippy toes. And that Linval Joseph he was on the tops of his feet that entire run, he was gliding.
J.J. couldn't catch him. I don't think J.J. would have caught him even if Barr wasn't there getting in the way.
J.J. lost his ACL. I'm just kidding. No, he was moving.
He was moving.
It was fun. I think didn't Jordan say it on Morning Joe's that I think he was talking about the same next gen stats that you, Luke, that they Diggs' top end this year was 21. And Linval's was not very far behind.
It was 18.2.
Yeah.
Gosh,
or something like that.
What a physical...
He wanted his touchdown. He's never had one before. He wanted that damn touchdown.
That's a lot of mass moving very fast.
Yeah, you get in the way of that. Ugh, good night.
He didn't glide into the end zone. He was so far out ahead. He was just he got 5-10 yards out. He started slowing down. I love it.
What if he just ran through the back of the end zone like the Kool-Aid Man and just kept going?
And Weatherly had a really great veteran pass rush move to get to force the strip. He basically widened out, I think it was Lane Johnson, rushed upfield to widen him out and then cut inside really beautifully. It was like really nice Everson Griffin-like move. Cut inside a little swim move, and Lane Johnson had no chance.
And a great block by Sheldon Richardson to spring a Linval.
Oh, yeah, and to not get like a crackback block penalty or anything like that.
Right.
Do you have any stats on how Weatherly's doing? I keep hearing all this positive stuff about him.
Let me just look that up real quick.
Speaking of
the eye test while Luke looks up, he's been doing good. He's been having a good season so far, and has really I'm not going to say filled the void of Everson Griffin, but he has gone a long ways to not make us feel like we've taken a huge step backwards. He's made some plays in the couple games that he started, and he's not going in big numbers, but he's making plays, and it's fun to see. I think it seems like Zimmer has always had faith in this guy. When early on, it was taking a while for things to happen for him, and now he's getting the opportunity. He's making the most of it.
Yeah, 12 pressures and 118 snaps. That is not so bad.
Yeah, that's good.
That's pretty productive, and 2 of them turning into sacks, 3 hits. That's contributing for sure.
Yeah,
pulling your weight.
Speaking of contributing, Adam Thielen, who Jordan calls the slot machine, is
like Calvin Johnson.
He's. I just saw an article from one of our competing websites. I thought it was just like a fan thing, and it said Adam in all caps. The headline was Adam Thielen is unstoppable, and I'm like, okay, that's news now. And it's true. He's been incredible. Speaking of sustainability, he gets. I don't know if it was the first Viking or the first NFL player ever to start the season with 500-yard games. He's got 3 to go to match Megatron, who Luke just mentioned. Just general thoughts on, Luke, you've talked about it, so every time I see him in the slot, I think about stuff you said about maybe why he's been so hard to stop. I will put out there that he did that you ball, you get the call thing with Deion Sanders, and he gave most of the credit to Diggs, which I thought was awesome. He said, I get in the zone when Diggs catches something, and then I realized I have to do it too. But he also, Deion said, how much of this is because you guys can't run the ball, so they're just throwing it to you? And Thielen laughed, and he said, well, there's a lot of variables that go into it, like kind of saying, like, yeah, but
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the volume, there's a lot more volume because they're passing more often because they don't want to run the ball, which I think is fine. Pass 50 times a game, let's go. It gives you, 400 yards of offense every game. That's great.
It's working.
But, he's good because he's got all the athleticism you need, right? Ran a 4.4, he's big enough. But he's technically perfect. I think of, when they say a dancer is on point.
Yeah.
And that means that, they've kind of reached this threshold where they're not going to worry about the, precision or mechanics of their movements anymore. Everything is fluid and muscle memory. That's where Adam Thielen is at right now. He's at that level of expertise. On that diving catch at the beginning of the game, he basically shaded his route inside. And essentially what they teach a corner is unless you're 100% sure that they're going to break inside, don't give up outside leverage, let your safety handle it, basically. If they're going to run a post, use your safety help and, make it so that you're not screwed if he cuts outside. Well, I think it was Jalen Mills or maybe Darby, but he gave up inside leverage because of how hard Adam Thielen committed to looking like he was going to run a post by kind of drifting inside. And the safety actually crashed up trying to jump the route too if it was going to be a post. And then Thielen, with beautiful suddenness and perfect technique, cuts outside, and he just burns both the safety in the corner, and he's wide open, and he gets to go lay out and make this big catch. Also, Stephen Weatherly is our most efficient run-stopping defense.
Oh, I forgot to ask you. I was going to ask about that. That's
most efficient on the team in the run.
Because just really quick? Sorry, but I was going to ask that, and I had a picture in my head of Everson Griffin. He prides himself so much on getting off the ball quicker than any even robot ever could. He gets penalties for it sometimes, but he seems to have the the snap countdown and all that, even better than the offensive linemen do.
He has a get-off coach.
There you go.
That sounds inappropriate.
Get off.
Yeah, I wish I had a get-off coach.
Sorry to derail it. Yeah,
no, I just was wondering if that helps. Maybe sometimes Everson Griffin ends up too far back because he does that. I don't know.
But yeah, he's technically perfect. He can, lay out and get a whole bunch of things. His catch radius is just unbelievable. So you can throw a ball that's not that other wide receivers can't haul in, but he can. And that is an inaccuracy eraser. I mean, we saw that all year last year, right? Where Case Keenum would throw up these weird balls all over the place, and he could haul everything in.
Because of any good, he would have had he put it in his hands rather than make him lay out like that.
Yeah, well, he had 3 eagles on his butt when he was throwing that. So that was as good as you could expect that ball to be.
I'm pretty sure I'll get a
go on that one. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Although I did get some tweets that said exactly that.
Really?
Yeah, well, something similar.
He backpedaled and bought just enough time for Thielen to finish that nuanced route running. And then
so basically, he's the most complete receiver ever, is what you're saying?
I've been comparing him to Julio Jones for 2 years.
I wonder how much of this
Jones is a little bit more. He's I think a little bigger and a little faster. But basically, there's that. What's Julio Jones bad at? What's Adam Thielen bad at? The answer to both is nothing.
I saw a tweet that compared that to
pass against the Eagles in the divisional game. He would have caught that pass in the end zone.
That's. I did see a stat that compared Julio Jones, Odell Beckham Jr., and Thielen over the last 13 games, and their stats are identical. Maybe a few less touchdowns for Thielen, but I wonder how much of this.
They haven't been the most efficient wide receivers in the league. They're not last year. I think Diggs in yards per route run, which is probably the best wide receiver stat in terms of capturing their play versus volume and stuff. Diggs was leading the league in that for 5 weeks. They're in 10th and 15th or something like that. But they're all getting targeted, 15 times a game because of the high volume passing game. So they're putting up these gaudy stats.
How much do you think it's one is complementary to the other? Atlanta's got plenty of good receivers, Sanu and now Calvin Ridley. But these two guys, you can't sleep on either one of them because they're gonna run routes, and Cousins knows where they're at. He's gonna hit them.
Yeah. Well, put yourself in the Cardinals. Maybe if this is a segue, the Cardinals have this horrible problem with this because their defensive backs are struggling. They have Patrick Peterson, who's good, and then they have Ben Benwicki, who's okay, but very much a low-end CB2. And Budda Baker has been playing in the slot for them, and that's been almost catastrophic. So they come out and they line up Diggs in the slot on one side and Thielen in the slot on the other. What do? Patrick Peterson doesn't play in the slot. Do you put Patrick Peterson out of position? Do you put Budda Baker on one of these guys and watch him get burned? You're screwed.
Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on Joe. You mentioned this a little bit, and we talked about it on the Morning Joes. The way that Thielen got to the NFL and maybe having a chip on his shoulder, every training camp I see him saying, he always talks about things he's working on or how he's getting better every year. He's not really resting on his laurels as much as maybe some other wide receivers do. I wasn't sure if that was a contributing factor as somebody who has talked to him a lot in person.
I think it is. He is pretty much driven. You see him, really get ticked off either on the practice field or in the game when a penalty is called or a play is not called right, and he's got injured. I've seen him throw his helmet when he got tweaked a little bit down in Mankato last year, and it's it's training camp. Settle down, And I've talked to him. He's a golfer and very good. And I've talked to some of the guys, in the PR staff, and they said that, he's I said, how's it playing with Adam? And he says, oh, it's fun, but the guy's way too serious on his golf. Gets really mad when he, and I can relate to that. He's got this mentality where he's always working to get better, and that's where I think he and Diggs play off each other. They both have come in maybe with that chip on their shoulder, 5th round pick and undrafted, and I don't think that it's so much a chip with Thielen, because I think he just knows he has to do this to get to this level. When MSU tells you we're going to give you $500, as a scholarship, and then you don't get invited to the combine, and then you don't get drafted, and then you start out on a practice squad. There's all these things telling you all along the way, yeah, you're nice, we're going to keep you around, but so you start working your tail off, and he knows what he's doing. He's got the skills. He's got everything except the pedigree coming in, and so you have to work that much harder. So I don't know if it's a chip, other than it's just his nature.
I wonder if Diggs and Thielen are going to open up like car dealerships across the street from one another and like just try to beat each other's sales. That'd be good too. I'd pay to watch that movie. We joked earlier.
Over and over.
Well, I'm writing a script. Let's do this. We talked earlier, joked about the trap game aspect. Joe, you wrote a preview article about the Cardinals who already replaced Sam Bradford. That guy's earned $20 million more often for doing nothing than anyone on this planet, outside of maybe one of the Trump sons.
I'm a new knee though.
Yeah, and I like Bradford, so I feel bad a little bit. But if you wanted to kind of ease us into that game, the preview.
Yeah, I guess I was just saying that I bristle a little bit at the trap game, and then I crabbed about people talking about Buffalo as a trap game, and then the Vikings fell right into it, So, they do exist, but until you can't call this a trap game, even if if they had won against Buffalo, everybody would be. You got a 1-4 team coming in there. They finally got their first win. They got a new quarterback in there who's played okay last week, and still learning the thing. They've got plenty of good weapons on that team. The defense isn't terrible. They're top 10, I think, against the pass with Patrick and Peterson as far as yardage, and they're not as bad.
They lost one game by 2 points and another by 3. So they're not horrible.
3 points in the first game, and I think they got shut out. And they're scoring 13 points. An average of 13 points a game, which is just freaking terrible.
Well, that's interesting because of what you just said about the defense being bad, but the offense being better. I wonder what the problem is.
You said the
okay.
defense is pretty good. The offense has got these weapons. They're just not putting up any
that's
points.
What you said.
And I just think that the Vikings, you're going to have to, go and prove that taking 10 days off to figure out Philly and beat them is not a fluke, because you've got, I know it's not, but you have to bring that to this game this week. You have to take this team with every bit of emotion that you took Philly with last week and come out there and beat the living Jesus out of them. But we'll see what happens. They're human beings that have to get beat up every week, and you can't get up for every game. So hopefully they come to play, or else they will get beat.
I forget what player I heard, defensive player, on K-Fan, but he said that it's almost like we like it when people doubt us and when our backs are completely against the wall. That's when we are at our best. I just wish we could do that all the time.
You like that? You like that?
Yeah, all the time. What do you think, Luke? I mean, they have David Johnson. Obviously, they got Fitz still, who's...
Yeah. So Mike McCoy is a huge problem in Arizona. He's the offensive coordinator, and he last week he ran David Johnson up the middle all but one time, which is just baffling. Like, what are you doing? They have a huge pass rush problem. Chandler Jones has been okay. They have another guy, but his name is escaping me, who's been okay. But then they have Corey Peters is struggling a lot. Their kind of interior pass rush is struggling a lot. They have a coverage problem in the slot, which is a bad thing to come to Minnesota with, because we have, I would say, a pretty good slot receiver or two.
Yeah, I was going to say, or apostrophe S. Wait, that's not how you use an apostrophe. Keep going.
Yeah.
I'm not.
They have a lot of issues. I'm not sure if quarterback is one of them right now. It's really hard to say because he's only really played like 2.5 games. I was a huge fan of Josh Rosen coming out of college. I know he was JR's QB1. Him and Baker Mayfield were like kind of 1A, 1B for JR. And that, I don't know, Rosen seems to have it together. He played really well against Seattle, struggled a little bit against San Francisco, so maybe there's a blueprint there. But I think this is one of those games where you just have to play straight up. You can out-talent them at most levels of the field. Even your offensive line, like, they don't have a pass rush. They're one of the worst run defense teams.
Ooh.
So if ever I tweeted it out and almost got reshoot for it. Like, if ever there was a time for the offensive line to like have a chance to kind of pull it together and get a little momentum going, it's against this team. They don't have a lot of talent.
That's what I wrote too, Luke. This was, last week wasn't the opportunity to get that running game going, but this week might be.
And speaking of which, I saw he was like a limited participant, Cook, in practice today, which is sort of encouraging, I guess, than not participating at all. Hot take there. Do you anticipate he'll play then? Or I know we talked about maybe letting him rest so this isn't a year-long thing.
Maybe.
I think they will.
Murray's been okay. Maybe pitch count.
Look at that. Luke and I, right at the same
I finally got it.
Go.
I'm dropping the mic. That's all I wanted.
And end the show.
Yeah. Is there any other like major factors? I mean, don't get too cute is what I'm picking up.
Yeah, you don't need to like outthink yourself, and that's a lot of the worst things that have happened to the Vikings have been them overthinking it on Sundays and like trying to do too much cute stuff. Play your game. Play, sugar the egg gaps and play press man. Like, that's what we're good at, and I don't think they have the talent to beat it.
If they didn't learn that last Sunday, then they're never going to learn it. Right?
Yeah, pick on Ben Wiki. Like, you have receivers that are better than him. Like, pick on Budda Baker. You have receivers that are better than him.
He's the fourth leading tackler in the NFL.
Budda Baker? Oh, he's been amazing against the run. As a box safety, he's been awesome, but not as a slot. He's been playing slot corner, and it's been a struggle.
Okay.
Like they can just play their game, and I think like they kind of, I don't know. It's weird. The Bills game was weird because they gave up 2 strip sack fumbles and they were down 17-0 in like 6 minutes. So like the rest of the stuff that happened in that game was like dictated by the game script, which is pretty unusual. But I think like you just have to not try to get too cute and not try to overthink it and do weird stuff to try to outthink like Mike McCoy. Like, no, Mike McCoy's going to make his own mistakes.
It is amazing to think, though, if you take that Bills game out, how different the general feeling about this team would be here in Minnesota and probably nationwide. They're still, getting a lot of respect, and I know you guys hate this in like the power rankings just because they have such a sick roster, but you lose by 8 to the Rams in Los Angeles, but you're in that game. If they would have beat the Bills, this team would be it'd be a different situation.
I go with the Packers. They make a kick in overtime, 1 of 2 kicks in overtime. And the whole season looks a hell of a lot different.
That's true, too.
If you make a kick, if Daniel Carlson makes a kick, you beat the Bills, but in return you lose to the Eagles, everybody feels way different about this team, and you're 3-2.
For sure. But I almost feel better in that regard, looking at it like that. The Bills game was a fluke. Those kicks were apparently going around in Green Bay, and then splitting against the Rams and Eagles. Like, I would have been more upset maybe thinking, well, those 2 better teams in the NFC beat us, as opposed to looking at a fluke and then beating the Eagles. The year after they beat us, which is the most Minnesota thing I can think of, to be honest.
It's the least Minnesota thing. We always lose to the team that like destroys us in the playoffs.
I always thought we beat them.
The
next
Saints.
year.
I believe
or maybe the year before.
Opener was the first time we beat the Saints since the Bounty Gate game.
Get out of here with your
that's
facts.
not true.
It's not?
I don't think so. I can look it up, but
while we do that,
I just
back in the 70s, the Vikings used to beat every team the next year that they lost.
That's pretty much where I got that from, because my dad had pounded that into my head since youth.
My youth is showing.
Yeah, way to live longer than all of us, idiot.
That's not going to be true. I give this world 30 years tops.
Yeah, I got CNN on mute for this hurricane, and it is what is going on. Let's get into predictions. I do believe I was way off last week. in both regards.
Yeah, and Oberle nailed it to a savant-esque degree.
He's from
only
the future.
Off by 3 points.
God, you're right. Wait, Luke, you're right. They beat the Saints twice last year, and those are the first 2 wins since
the Favre game.
All right. Well done, sir.
Speaking of savant, and Joe Johnson, you missed by 16 points.
Wait, I missed the part where you said I nailed it. Go back to that part.
You did. You nailed it, missing by only 3. Johnson missed by 16, so now
ouch.
The lead is exactly 16.
Little breathing.
In favor of Oberle. So a little breathing room, but a lot of season left to be played.
I am happy to be wrong, though. And I said that at the time, and I'm sticking with it. I do like the little silver linings. If they were to lose to the Eagles, I felt like I'd be at least partially happy. But
yeah, there you go.
Just like my brother.
It was reasonable to be negative. We were on a 2-game losing streak. Things were catastrophic. The defense was breaking, melting.
I did go a little hard.
I used to be such a homer. My brother would call me up every week and say, "Okay, who you got or how much?" We'd bet on the Vikings, and I would always take the Vikings, and he would always bet against them no matter what, just because he wanted to CYA. But that's okay, Joe.
Tyler told me a really heartening story today. He said his dad refused to let them watch the Vikings when he was growing up. He's 2 years younger than me, so he's 32. Because his dad had been traumatized so much in his youth, he didn't want to put Tyler through it. And I'm like, man, that's Minnesota right there. Yikes. So he's like, I didn't watch my first Vikings game until I was 13 years old. I'm like, what? I kind of applaud that move. I can see the logic in it. But back to the predictions.
Well, mine's out there, so if you want me to go first.
Yeah, and then we can do the over-unders. I forget which order we do those in.
I have the Vikings winning this one 24-13.
Ooh.
Nice and comfy.
Yes,
I feel like it'll be the same thing, but I feel like the defense is really wanting to use this opportunity on things that you guys discussed and show the league that, hey, we can take on a rookie quarterback and not give up, 27 points. So I'm going 27-6.
Woo!
Vikings win. Got to pick up some of those points.
That's not a bad pick. I had them at 10. I went back and forth between 10 and 13. I thought, so that's it could be that could be good.
Granted, right. we got a gnome to give away.
Woo!
So we had a bunch of entries. A lot of people got on Aldrick Robinson. He only got 1 target. He needed 2 to hit his over.
So they all picked the under?
No, they all picked the over, and Aldrick didn't hit it because he only got 1 target in the game, which I think surprised people because he had such a good game in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I picked him. Bah.
But Johnson, you and I picked a loss, so we're out. I also picked the Murray under, which I was also wrong about. So I was pretty spectacularly wrong.
Me too.
Oberle, you got it. You got the Diggs over, 7 catches. I think just got 10, and a Vikings win.
You almost had halftime.
And a couple people were there with you, Oberle. GA Vikes Fanatic and Allie McCauley. Well done. And a bunch of people got the Murray over. I think he had 46 though, it was close.
Wow.
And a Vikings win. And those people are Johan Vikes, Eddie D71, Coley Olerode, Kyler Dahl, Hubert 1962, and my parents.
Again, I'm starting to think there's a bias
me every
here.
week, and they're like, "We picked this one."
Did they have names? Did they have names other than?
Yeah, Londa and Gary.
Hey, hi, Londa and Jerry.
And Jerry. So here comes the raffle. The gnome goes to loading Kyler Dahl.
Yay, you did it.
Kyler Dahl with 2 E's.
And I'll be honest, I have one of the gnomes at my house, and I was going to use that to send it out first, but I opened the box and I fell in love with it, and now no one can have it. So, what?
I'd be curious to know how many people picked Vikings to win last week. My brother.
It was most of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow. Look at that. Positivity.
We got some optimists in the mentions.
Gotta love it.
So who
Which I don't
goes
know.
first this week? You don't like Optimus?
I don't
either.
think I've gotten one right since San Francisco, so I'm going first.
Yay.
So this week the three are going to be first over under 21.5 pressures allowed. That's allowed by the Vikings, and that's as a unit, as a team, as a whole. So Kirk Cousins under pressure for 21.5 plays, so 22 and he hits it. So here's the thing about that. That's our average for the season. We allow 21.5, and considering we throw like 48 times a game, that's like not great, but not as bad as it sounds.
Wow.
If the Cardinals were to hit that, if they were to pressure Kirk Cousins 22 times, that would be a season high for them. So our average is their season high. A stoppable force meets a movable object. The second one is over under 99.5 yards for Thielen. So is he going to have a 100-yard game again or not? And the third one is over under 10.5 rushing yards for Kirk Cousins. The kid's got wheels.
Ooh. These are
three
getting. These
good
are,
ones.
yeah, you're getting really good at this. Almost too good.
I'm having a lot of fun with these.
These are great.
I am going to go with the over on pressures, but I'm going to go with the Vikings win anyways. I think, as weird as that one is, I think they're just going to keep passing all the time. No, you know what? This is going to be the one game that no, I take it back. I'm doing a 100-yard game for Thielen. I take the over.
Ooh, oh. How many yards
Last
did
minute.
Cousins have last week rushing? Do you know offhand?
Cousins rushing?
Yeah.
He had one run for 8 or something like that.
That's a hard one. So it's got to be over, 10 and a half yards?
Got to be 11.
Yeah, 11 yards and you get it.
Or the pressures. Christ. I'm going to take the Cousins over.
And you got to win.
And the Vikings are winning. Comfortably.
I think. Okay. I think I can do this. Since we all take something different, and I had the Cousins over, so I can't do that. But I'm going to take the Thielen under.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I can do that, can't I?
I was going to ask.
Sure, that's interesting. Now we're directly pitted against each other. I hadn't thought of that, but okay.
I like it.
That's what I had. I had the pressures under. I think with all the attention Thielen's got this week, and they're gonna put Patrick Peterson on him wherever he goes. And,
Ooh, could be a big Diggs day.
Yes.
It's going to be a good game. I think that the team needs this, and they got some tough games coming up after that. I know a lot of them are at home, thankfully, but got to reset the gears. But yeah, that's been the show. You can PM Luke or the Purple PTSD Twitter if you want to. If you don't
I'll
follow
tweet it out
Luke.
right meow.
And Luke is at Luke Braun NFL. You can find Joe at Joe Oberly, and you can find me at nothing.
Hey Luke, how many? Sorry, Joe. How many entries were there in the from the readership or viewership this listener?
20 some.
Ooh,
Okay,
yeah.
so we got to get those back up there, folks.
Well,
Yeah.
we missed a week. The team lost a couple. I get it, but we got to get it back up. Hopefully,
Yeah.
we've got a lot more people engaged now that we won a game.
60 is the benchmark, so aim for
Yep.
that. That would be amazing. But yeah, follow Joe and Luke on Twitter. Follow our sites, either directly or on social media, Vikings Territory and Purple PTSD. And check in with Joe and I, and maybe a guest. We'll see. It'll be an exciting one if it works out on Friday morning at 9:30. But this has been the Purple Journal podcast. Thanks for listening.